Hey, all you Warhammer players, and welcome to the Yop.
Yep.
I am Jeremy, and with me, as always, is my co-host Joey. How we doing today, Joey?
I'm doing all right, man. Doing all right.
Welcome to episode 3. This is Into the Unknown. We're going to be talking about quite a few major changes, but before we jump into that, let's talk about what we're getting ready for. Let's talk about what we're hobbying up. Joey, what are we getting ready for right now?
Well, we're getting ready for we got an RTT this weekend. Hopefully I can get out of work and make it to that.
That would be good. Yes.
But you're going, right? I mean, I believe you're going to that one, correct?
Yes, I'm definitely going.
Yeah.
I'm excited to get my Gladius fun in before it all gets taken away from me. My Ultramarines Gladius fun.
Are you chickening out of bikes?
I just don't have enough bikes when it comes down to it.
Okay.
I have the 6 Outriders, so I finished the 6 new ones. But I only just received 8 of the Hunters or of the Ravenwing bikes, and they are in a state, to say the least. So that's going to be fun to clean up and fix. I don't have the list for it.
That's fair.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, it's just not being ready for it yet.
Yeah, when it comes down to it. Otherwise, they released the player pack for the big teams, the qualifier event coming up here at the end of March.
Which is very cool. I do need to jump on that and get to reading.
Yeah, I'm super excited. The cutoff date for the rules is going to be March 8th, so it's going to be a really big wait for the next, week and a half while we just cross our fingers and hope that not every army is completely dismantled by the data slate coming up.
Right. So with that, then I'll remind you, and you can remind, the guys that you play with on whatever club you're playing with there. And I'll talk to the guys that I'm helping that, the Warhammer app updates automatically. So as soon as a data slate comes out, it's going to update.
Oh, so we need to have our rules.
Yeah, the morning of March 8th, you should probably go in and just screenshot everything.
That's a good idea. I didn't even come to think of that. Guess you could have one of those like manual list apps too,
you could,
and just kind of make adjustments that way. So that's one thing to bear in mind if you are in one of those circuits where you have to submit a list weeks before an event.
Mm-hmm.
It's
definitely very important to remember.
Yeah, I'm really hoping that we see a data slate change like the first of the month. I don't expect it. I expect it hits, like the 15th or whatever.
Right. Well, because what's the event's on the 22nd, right?
It's the 23rd, yeah.
The 23rd? Ooh, no, it's not. 23rd is a Sunday, so it's 22, 23?
Yeah, it's 22nd, Sunday? 23rd. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, it really wouldn't surprise me if we see the update on the 20th is the Thursday before the event, and we're just really sad. Yeah,
that would make the most sense. Just really crossing my fingers for the 6th or the 13th. Or sorry, the 6th, because the cutoff on the is the 8th. So if the 6th hits, that would be ideal. But there's nothing doing. But that's okay. Right. We'll see how it goes. The practicing list has been quite a bit of fun. Really leaning into just enjoying that basic Gladius build, the 3 Vindicators, the Reaper, and 2 Ballistas is the core with Guilliman and Calgar, of course. But if Guilliman and Calgar make it past, the next data slate with anything, I will be genuinely surprised.
Yeah.
Because that combination is a little strong. A little strong.
It's pretty okay. It's pretty okay.
I mean, I don't know how they fix that, but I guess we'll see. It's kind of it's the CP advantage between the two. That's just so much.
Yeah, I mean, it is, but Guard can do the same thing with Leontis and Ursula. You can end up with the same concept.
Oh, okay. Maybe they won't hit them too hard. I think if they get rid of the +1 to wound for Ultramarines, I think that kind of does it. But we'll see how it goes. I mean, really, when it comes down to it, I don't know. But I do believe in Josh Roberts and the Balance team to make some good changes overall.
Yeah.
Okay. So hobby-wise, what you been up to, buddy?
Hobby-wise, well, we got some guard kind of painted. I mean, I talked about it a little bit last week. We got some paint on them. Spent some time getting a couple more things built. I picked up my combat engineers, and my Krieg command squad came in from pre-order, so I have those boxes. I got to get those guys built because the combat engineers seem pretty good.
Yeah, they're a little strong.
I need the Krieg command if I'm going to play Recon Company at some point, which I will because it is incredibly strong.
It is good, yes.
So that's pretty much it. The only the amount of legitimate building or any attempt at painting that I've actually done this week has all been for MCP stuff. So
fair enough. Let's see. I have on my desk. I finished those 6 Outriders completely, which is nice. I started. I based them a little differently from what I normally do. I did an epoxy bottom and then blended it into a cork top, so it looks like broken asphalt. That was the goal with it. And then they all turned out fine. The first time I did these 6 bikes, it took me 6 months to paint them. These took me just a few weeks. So pretty awesome turnaround there.
Yeah, that's a pretty marked improvement on that.
Yeah, just because I haven't enjoyed painting mid-sized models really ever. But this is the first time I actually enjoyed it. And then mounted models, cavalry or bikes or whatever, they're always such a slog. Yeah,
they're your dude, and you're like, okay, I did it. I painted my dude, but then you've got whatever he's riding.
Yep, it's a lot. And tires might be one of the worst things in 40K to paint, just because of all the little things. Like just getting enough paint on it alone is annoying.
Yeah.
So there's that. They look great though, and I'm very happy with them. But directly next to them is the other project I picked up, which is now my base-coated Storm Raven bomber or whatever, the thing that can pick up a dreadnought.
Sure.
I got it orange, and I got its base all black and all that. It's looking good. Just got to start the actual painting process. The airbrush phase is over, so
oh no,
yeah, that's gonna take some time because it's got these big turbines and stuff, and it's just way too much. So,
I mean, I've found a surprising amount of enjoyment out of the handful of aircraft that I have painted.
Okay,
so
oh no, yeah, we'll see how it goes. I'll let you know. At least edge highlighting is super easy on these things.
Their edges are quite large.
Yeah, and it's a toaster when it comes down to it, so it's not exactly.
It's just a flying Land Raider.
But yeah, that's all my hobby stuff going on, and then I got my bikes in the mail, the ones I rescued off of eBay. There's only 8 of them, and one of them doesn't have a base, so I effectively got 2 squads for $30. So
which is still a good deal.
Yeah. And that's good. Some of them aren't equipped correctly, but we'll figure something out. Yeah, anyway, that's all my stuff. So let's get into the big change. The first unknown we're jumping into on this session, this episode, is going to be new ITC. So I'm going to listen to you for a while you talk about it.
Sure. Okay, so this week we saw the 21st, I guess, last week. We saw the official announcement from Games Workshop of how they are going to be handling the not seizure, because that's not what it was, partnership and leadership role within the ITC, so the International Tournament Circuit. Mm-hmm. We heard about, I think, halfway-ish through last year that GW was going to start running the ITC, but we had zero idea of what that was going to look like. We just knew that they were going to do it and that was happening. And there were a couple like concerns, myself included. I've seen GW in the past try to own and run the competitive scene, and it did not go well. And so then they stopped it, and we saw Frontline kind of take the reins on that and start with the help of BCP and all those guys, and they started the international tournament circuit, and then that's what we've had for years now, but GW hasn't been a part of that. And so we had all of the big GW Opens and everything. They were giving ITC points, but they were also counting towards like Worlds invites and things. And that was, 4 or 5 years ago when that first started, or not when it first started, but when it first came back, that was kind of a really awkward second entity. And we saw you had GW Open and you had the World Championship that was called the World Championship, but everything that competitive players actually cared about was LVO, which is in January. And it was a really weird mix. But we've seen now officially Games Workshop has made their announcement. And so this year officially, 2025, the ITC season is backdated. So we have some events that are going to count toward, or that counted previously towards last year. And then they are also going to count this year for 2025. But it's been backdated to the 25th of November, which is the conclusion of the Warhammer World Championship. And that's essentially going to be the season now. So now we have the ITC season is going to be from the day after the World Championship until the final day of the next year's World Championship, which it's going to be this weird, there's an awkward time span this year that's going to make it kind of weird. But moving forward, I think it makes a lot of sense. If you're going to have an event called the World Championship, that probably should be the end of the season.
I agree. It does make more sense, yes.
We have a little bit of an awkward time where we've got, these events from the end of November until now, essentially, that counted for both years.
Right.
And so even, ITC itself or LVO itself is going to count. Like LVO previously, that was it. That was the end of the year. And so we had Best in Faction awards and all of those things for ITC came out. And then now we're moving into a new year, but it's also backdating. And so those points from LVO are going into this new year as well. It's good and bad. I think it's probably better than the alternative, which would just be to start a new year beginning at this year's World Championship, because you're going to end up with 6, 7, 8 months of events that don't matter, and nobody wants that.
Right.
So the alternative was what they chose, which is you've got a handful of months that has effectively double counting events, but it's really not that big of a deal, I don't think. And for some people, it's great. You have people like, the biggest example that I think of is just because I follow him and care about how he does. You've got people like Scary, who
he's starting with the bang.
He's starting with a bang. He placed 5th at LVO, and that was, that got him Best in Faction, but he already had Best in Faction for Drukari.
Locked down, yeah.
Pretty much. Just going to LVO and playing was enough for him to lock it down.
Right.
And so those extra points of essentially getting, 5th place in this amazing performance were pseudo wasted, but now they're going towards this next year, which is amazing. So he's starting off really high and just gets to move forward.
So
yes.
Anecdotally speaking, I think so. My buddy, Andrew Johnson, he was number 4th in the hobby track end of the year. And he had a really strong chance to be able to potentially come in top 2 going into LVO. He's the one who won paint at Tacoma. He did really well at Worlds. And he came in 14th at LVO, which is insane to me,
Wow.
especially if you came in first place at an open with the same judging staff.
Yes, the hobby. I've never tried it, but I do know, because I have friends that do it, that like the hobby track is so crazy. It is
it's kind of BS, right?
I mean, I don't know, because I've never really done it, but it's like, it is very, very tight generally, right? If you go look at the points right now, it's not. But if we look at, like right now, I'm looking at the points for it. So if you look at current 5th place, who was this year's winner, or 2024's winner, Kevin Grubbs,
right,
he's currently 5th place because of the new, because the ranking started over. So if we look at 5th place through, we'll say 15. So what I'm guessing was pretty close to the top 10. You're looking at, there's only 150 point gap between 5th and 15th.
Certainly. Right.
That's one event.
Like, I know how close it overall is. It just seems a little, like, I feel for my buddy.
100%.
Who has painted his ass off this last couple of years. And
yes,
they don't have a very strong rubric or feedback structure. And so it creates weird problematic things.
The feedback structure, yes, I will definitely. That is a thing that I do know. Yeah, their feedback structure lacks a bit. Yeah. It's just, oh, you got second. We'll see you later. It's
right.
Like, okay.
Can you maybe fill out a document?
Exactly, because
whatever.
Kevin Grubbs is the perfect example, and he's one of the big Texas players. So I've known him through events for a handful of years now. He has been going after, this like hobby track is his goal. So he's been going after first place hobby track 40K for the past, I think, 5 years. And the past 3 years prior to this year that he won, so 2023, 2022, 2021, he was, I think, second and or third.
Yeah. To one guy, I believe. Yeah.
3 years in a row. To the same guy.
Who almost won it again this year.
But
yeah.
So
I guess he could thank Donald Plummer for that.
Yeah. So I look at it of like, I get it. This is somebody that so like, yes, it does feel bad. I feel bad for him. But if anybody deserved it, I really do think like Kevin worked his ass off for years after years and years and years.
Yeah.
So
I don't know. It just seems that their rubric, I mean, and kudos to him. Congratulations to Kevin for winning. That's a huge honor. But still.
Yeah.
There's
I don't know what they change. And
it's like
I'm sure something will change.
Like Golden Demon. Yeah. They got to do something.
Yes.
They got to do something that has an actual like paint metric associated with it.
That's the hard part, right? Because even when you do local painting competitions, as much as people will try to make it not happen, it will almost always fall into a
weird personal
popularity contest. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, personal opinion and popularity and all that. So it's tough.
Yep. It is. Now, we can jump off of paint now. Let's talk about some of the issues that I have with the Open and just GW taking over and some of my general concerns. Now, some of them have been assuaged by some of the ruling changes they made at Worlds this past year.
Okay.
So my personal experience with the Opens from like a competitiveness standpoint, large in part is problematic. They would not allow people to clock people at the Opens leading up to Worlds, which is an issue because so many people show up to really big events and have played their list like twice, Yeah. And I agree that there is an amount of please come enjoy the game, but the number of competitive players has quadrupled in the last 2-3 years.
Sure.
and the opens themselves feel as though they're just kind of doing whatever and not really caring most of the time when it comes to people slow playing specifically. Have you experienced that, heard of anything in that range?
I've heard of it. I have not experienced it. And unfortunately, I have only been to one GW Open, which
Fair
was
enough.
just that Dallas Open last year. And we were allowed to clock people if we wanted to.
Oh, that's nice. They didn't let us clock people at Tacoma this past year.
They didn't obviously supply them, but if you had them, they would allow you to use it.
Yeah. Buddy of ours, Wyatt, got super screwed by a Tyranid player who showed up 15 minutes late to the game, so just in time to play. Then went to the bathroom as soon as he got there for another 15 minutes, and then Wyatt played for about 32 minutes.
Wow.
While the other player took the remainder of the round for himself. They made it through 2 rounds and he lost. It was like, okay, cool. Okay, so I have that's my first biggest issue with like GW's general take on the competitive scene. I mean, LVO was a great event for people who wanted clocks. Clocks were fine, and clocks were fine at Worlds. So it seems that maybe they've heel turned on it, and I hope that's the case. Right. The other issue that I have noticed, and this was a big issue at Tacoma this past year, was they don't yellow card people.
Oh, yeah.
Like, none. Like, technically the winner of Tacoma should have been yellow carded in Game 5.
Right.
And he didn't get it. He did bow out because he played his rule wrong for 5 rounds leading up to it, which probably netted him some wins, or at least played a part in it. It was corrected, and a judge watched the rest of his games, and to be fair, he won fair and square. So I'm not saying take the win away at all, but what I am saying is that if you make such an egregious mistake so many rounds in a row, that a yellow card should just be automatic, right?
I mean, yes. Like, that's you made a fundamental mistake.
Yeah, a fundamental issue yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah. I get that. I can say that, yeah, I did not see any yellow cards come up on BCP during the Dallas Open, and I know that there were issues. So that is strange. I will say that my biggest problem with the Open, but I mean, from what you're describing, it doesn't seem like they treated it the same way at Tacoma. So at Dallas, there was essentially, like, there was no penalty for going overtime.
Interesting.
They just waited.
That's crazy.
They just waited for the next game for everyone to finish, and then they would do pairings. There was one individual who I will not name, but there was an individual at the Dallas Open who went at a minimum 25 minutes after the round was supposed to be over.
No.
Still playing every single round. Every single round.
I'm all for a 10-minute break between games, but holy crap.
And it was never clearly it was never addressed because it still happened in round 8.
Yeah.
It was unreal.
I really, really hope that they kind of tamp that down a little bit. Dice down 3-hour rounds. The sheer number of times when people want to start their, 4th and 5th round with 6 minutes left in the round, you're just like, no, dude, like, we can't. Like, it is dice down.
I'm all for enforcing, hey, there is 15 minutes left in the round. Finish this battle round and then talk it out. Do not start another battle round.
Yeah, I have an issue with talking things out. I think the only time you could talk anything out is the 5th round, and that's a maybe. But if there's more than the 5th round, I don't think, because I've watched so many games where like you try to talk it out, or you talk it out with a friend, and you're just like, or someone you're playing against, and it just always ends up a little muddled, and you wind up rolling dice anyway.
Yeah, and so I've seen it, and the way that I've handled it like at events that I've run. But again, like, or not again, the issue is that I understand that GW cannot do that because they can't put a judge at every single table.
Right.
But when you're talking, if you're talking it out after time has been called, then you should only be scoring the things that happen passively.
Oh, interesting.
And so,
okay.
And that's it, right? You go, okay, well, we're in turn 3, but time is over. So we can't move, we can't shoot, we can't charge, we can't do anything. And so based on where all of our models are right now, this is the primary you score in 4, the primary you score in 5. What were your secondaries? Were they
scoreable based on where
were they
things are
scoreable
at?
based on where things are right now?
Okay.
If yes, score. If no, sorry.
Gotcha. I think
But
you can
that's
talk
not a
out the
standard.
rest
There's
of a
just
single
no-
turn.
I agree. That's super easy. There's
Yeah.
just there's no like written standard anywhere about how to properly talk out a game, which I guess is fair because it shouldn't happen. It shouldn't be a thing where if they say dice down and you're halfway through turn 3 and it's 16 to 25, then technically that's the score.
Yeah, that's what it's supposed to be. Like, if you can't make it through 5 rounds of Warhammer, then you shouldn't have brought that list when it comes down to it. I'm sorry. Like, if you can't handle playing 130 models, then you shouldn't play 130 models. There's a reason so many people bring Knights and Custodians.
I don't disagree with you. I just think that there are a lot of individuals who have brought lists to major tournaments specifically because they were going to go to time, and that's how they were winning.
Yeah. And that's problematic. That's a very problematic behavior.
It is.
And
I don't know how you fix it, but it is problematic.
I think there's a feedback loop that I would like to see a feedback loop that GW associates, like a round by round feedback loop where they collect information from players, in a database. And then, do you have a complaint about this person and the pace in which they play? And then they just collect information on it little by little by little. I mean, you can connect your Warhammer account with BCP now.
You can.
Why not collect more data from experiential data? I think, we start, maybe this is a pipe dream, but there has to be some, because it's the same judges that go to every open.
Right.
And things are inconsistent across the board. I think you could agree to that.
Yeah, it seems that way.
And there are always going to be players who slow play other players, be it intentional or not. And I think that hurts the game and the experience at tournaments for a lot of players.
That's fair. And I will say that, in my experience, people that unintentionally slow play, be it lack of experience, nerves, analysis paralysis, whatever it is, those people, in my experience, are super chill and understand that that's what's happening on their end and are willing to work with you.
Absolutely. The people who are very obviously very intentionally players, not intentionally, but the players who know they're slow and have to deal with that in all of their games generally are really good humans about it. They take their time, they talk to you about it, and they're very forgiving of their own. They're like, look, if this kept going, you probably win. Or they're more than willing to be like, I mean, you're ahead right now. Who knows what happens if we have another hour to play this game? But there are also players, there's a few I can think of up here, who of course will remain nameless, who have really good tournament results all the time and very, very occasionally make it to the top 10 of the tournament. And that's uncool. That is so, I hate that so much because I'm somebody who very specifically focuses on making sure I can play in 90 minutes.
Yeah.
So
it's a thing I have spent a significant amount of time practicing.
Yeah.
even
I think it's courteous.
in pickup games, like I know what my pace needs to be and I can feel it.
Yeah.
And working, like, especially right now, like I'm still trying to really learn how to play guard because it's so different than what I'm used to. And I'm even in just perfectly casual pickup games with no time restriction at all, I'm still apologizing because I'm like, hey, I'm sorry that this has taken so long. I'm just really trying to figure out what to do here.
Right.
Like, because I know where I'm supposed to be. So it's just, I don't know.
I think Apple Watch needs like a app for that, like a good app for timer. I think that'd actually be really smart.
So the ITC Battles app that everybody already uses for their score has a clock on it.
Oh, does it?
You just have to go into your settings and turn it on.
Fascinating.
There is a turn clock on that app.
I'm going to turn that on and do that this weekend at the RTT, and everyone's going to be like, you're an idiot.
It's wild. But even with that being said, like they could take that, right? Where the ITC this last year was already asking, on top of just the score, they were already asking who went first so that they can get that kind of data. And so they could theoretically, the required information could be who went first, what are the scores, and then what was the time spent playing for each player.
Yeah, they certainly
It's a
could.
lot. It's a lot, right? Because that would require clocks, and I don't know that that's something that people want to do. I'm just saying that it is something theoretically that they could do.
I feel like...
And maybe they only do it at big events.
Yeah. At least in the situation where, you know, the top, let's just say, 2 like brackets.
Mm-hmm.
At least. Like the people in the, 0-3 bracket, have fun, boys. Like, enjoy your time, you know? But
yeah.
Or you buy, there's 2 different tickets. You have the non-clock have fun version of the competitive tournament, and then you have the people who want to play competitively.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a weird, like I said, it's a weird thing to balance, but
it is.
There's certainly an answer. I'm not 100% sure what that is, but
no, I really genuinely hope that, and I believe that GW has made a really good turnaround. I genuinely believe that in terms of their attention to the competitive side of 40K, and I believe that they're gonna drop the ball here and there, and that's totally fine. But that they're going to make good choices overall towards a more competitive game and game experience when you're there. So here's the hoping to that, right?
No, absolutely. I'm going to jump back to the ITC changes because we're not actually done. I'm going to try and kind of shoot through this, but there are some more changes that are notable changes other than just the dates that the season exists in.
All right. What are they?
All right, so we have our country rating. So previously you had your world ranking, your country rating, and then you could go down into your region, right? So there was world, and then we would go US, and then here for us we would go US West. In Texas it was US Southwest and whatever, right? So you could look at where do I sit in my region, where do I sit in my country, where do I sit in the world? That is gone, at least part of it. So we no longer have a region. It is now, or rather the regions are different, right? So you still have world ranking and then country ranking. So we go to, for us actually, it's very, to be fair, these are completely different. You have global, and then we have North America. And then it breaks down United States, Canada, Mexico as the tertiary ranking. But once you go to United States, there is nothing further. You can't go west. It is just United States. That is the breakdown inside of North America.
Fascinating.
So that is quite the change. And
it's massive, yeah.
It's huge. North America does only have the 3. Europe has, it looks like upwards of 25 because it's I mean, you're looking at essentially you have Europe and then countries, right? So there's a bunch.
Right.
And then we have Oceania, which has a handful, just 2, Australia, New Zealand, surprise.
Yeah,
and that's
well,
it.
that's always
Right.
going to
So
be that way.
that's it. And then we have global.
Okay.
So the ranking or the region ranking is quite different. It doesn't really it doesn't actually affect anything, but those that care, that is a notable change. Within that, what they talk about is, so with country rankings, and what they talk about inside of that section of the article is golden tickets for being at the World Championship. Mm-hmm. So the baseline focus for this is the ITC ranking, as they talk about that it is now country-based. Players will further navigate the regions and then global rankings if they really want to. Even with that, when you go to ITC now, as soon as you log in, it will essentially, I mean, it's a computer, right? So it pulls your IP, and it'll just, as soon, like if you click on 40K ITC player rankings, it will automatically push you right now to North America.
Interesting.
So if you want to look at the global, you have to go and actually click global to look at everybody. So they are putting a bigger emphasis on regions, even though the regions are technically a lot bigger. But what they're trying to do there, or what they talk about they're trying to do, is incentivize the local levels of play to build foundations for a Warhammer community, and hopefully empowering the underserved regions with nuanced and focused information, is what they say. But to reflect this, as it says here, I'm just going to read this. To reflect this, we will also award qualifying spots for the World Championship of Warhammer based upon country standings at the end of the season and at the midpoint, which is officially the 1st of June, 2025. The highest ranked players who are not yet qualified in each ITC ranked country will receive an invitation to participate in the next World Championship.
Oh, so you could you don't have to win a gold ticket. You could just be really good and at the top.
You have to be the best in your country.
Okay.
So it is the highest ranked players who are not already qualified. So,
gotcha.
And this, I'm going to assume for just a second, but the way that I read that is the way that I would read GW rules, because it's the same people. So if you have the top, we'll say United States, if the top 5 players in the United States are already qualified, then that ticket would go to number 6.
Right.
So you don't even necessarily need to be number 1. You just need to be very good, and everybody in front of you needs to already have qualified.
Which most of them will in one way.
Most of them will.
Yeah.
Most of them will, because they are also just giving out more tickets this year.
Because I'm pretty sure the Art of War guys, like, they win like 4 or 5 throughout the year each.
Well, and that's why you'll see, like, if you really pay attention, you'll watch that. You'll go, oh, well, why isn't John Lennon playing at the Dallas Open? Because he already got a ticket and he doesn't need to.
Right.
And he doesn't. They're at least, kind enough people to recognize that they don't need to take that away from somebody else, because they legitimately could.
Yeah. Well, it usually will cascade down anyway. And
yes, but I think that it just makes some awkward situations, and they're doing their best to try and avoid that where they can, which is cool.
Yeah. But that's positive change, I suppose.
Yeah. So they go on to say that they've adjusted the ranking algorithm for event sizes. Larger events obviously will still award more points.
Of course.
And smaller events will award less points.
Of course.
Obviously. But what they say is the distance the distance in point allocation between the top and the bottom has been reduced. So, yes, bigger equals more, but it's not, you're not looking at like 100 and, I don't know, last year 172 for winning a 16-person RTT versus like 250 for winning a GT, right?
Right.
So that change, that whatever is the gap is smaller. So they continue that they want to incentivize events that exist in the most common player size range, which they say is 20 to 64.
Yeah, that's pretty common for smaller GTs. Yeah.
Yep. So I get the point growth valuation at 20 to 64. I guess based on percentages is going to be the highest one that we'll see.
Okay.
And then events between 128 and 256 players is the next one that they talk about. So we see things like Storm of Silence previously was 120.
Yeah.
And then they made this announcement. And so Bob looked at it and said, well, I guess we're going to put 4 more tables out. So he pushed it. Now it's 128 people so that it qualifies for that next bracket.
Yeah. So we get the extra points and ticket, right?
Right.
Cool.
So it says it will improve the relative value of significant events in smaller countries, but also helps to ensure that broader and more inclusive impact of ITC experience of events of all shapes and sizes. So those people that live in regions that only have small RTTs and they just can't make it to big ones, their gap in ITC points will be smaller to reflect that they are still a good player. They just can't make it to these events.
And then, of course, if you live in a region like we do, where there's 2 to 3 RTTs a month, and GTs all within driving distance, and the rich get a little richer in that sense, right?
Well, and I think that's the idea, is that I would assume, and hopefully I'm right, to be honest with you, but I would assume that the big events will be worth less than they have been. And the smaller events will be worth a little bit more. And that's kind of their like balancing act of that, I would hope.
Seems interesting. Yeah, that's wild.
It is interesting. So I think this is. Go ahead.
Because I'm just thinking, like, what is there another tier for like majors and super majors?
No, GTs and majors they fall in the same category.
That's crazy.
They don't even list things as RTT, GT, major. They talk about just player range. It's 20 to 64 is the biggest growth, and 128 to 256 is like the second biggest growth of point valuation that we're going to see this year. Yeah. And everything else is different.
That's so wild to me, because I feel like 400 to 500 should be its thing, and then like a super event like LGT, LVO, those should all have the highest point allocation, period, end of story. You're one of almost 1,000 people.
Right, and I'm sure they will. And because it does talk about that, it says, so while every additional participant you make room for will increase the rankings value of an event, a little growth in size from each of the most common current size ranges will yield the most player-by-player benefit.
Interesting. Okay. Well, I guess we'll just have to see how it all turns out.
Yeah. I mean, the way that they talk about it, it seems positive. We just have to hope that in practice is what we get, right?
Yep. Let's see.
So the last section here in this article, and then we can talk about something else, but
okay, sure.
The last section in this article here is for my fellow TOs out there, for tournament organizers.
Oh, yes.
So Games Workshop has had the approved tournament organizer program for a handful of years now, essentially since they started back up doing the opens. And you can run ITC events and you can do whatever, but like there was no actual requirement.
Right. Before,
you could just do it. You just put your name in as the TO and you submit a request for the token and you move on, right? So, which is technically, that is still the way that it is. However, they've kind of brought the approved TO program into like more of the limelight, because it was kind of something that, or honestly, a lot of people just didn't know existed.
Right.
That now, they put the application on here, and it is an application, right? You have to, you give them your BCP information and you give them your Warhammer information, and you have to give them links. Like you have to give them BCP links to events that you have successfully completed, like you have run. and then they look at they ask you, there's a couple questions you have to answer, and they'll look at your application and decide whether or not you make it into this program or not. But assuming that you make it, that you become an approved TO for GW, your tokens for your events will be automated. So instead of like requesting a token, waiting for it to get approved, and then applying the token to your event, if you are in the approved TO program, you don't have to do that. You will still have to submit the request for your event, but if you're an approved organizer, then that token will automatically get approved by the system and applied to your event.
Oh, cool.
So it's supposed to be just improving the quality of life for the TOs themselves, which is great. And then it still has to do with TOs. It is not on ITC right now, so I'm not sure how they're going to do it exactly, like what the numbers are going to look like. But it says, we've implemented the next step in our partnership with Best Coast Pairings, making it easier for Warhammer fans to run and participate in events hosted on the platform. You can log into BCP using your Warhammer account. You can link your BCP and your Warhammer. Everybody knows that, or I hope you know that.
Yeah, it's
and there's no reason not to.
I logged in. Yeah,
there's no reason not to. It doesn't hurt you. Just do it.
Oh.
But events will also receive a small rankings boost for organizers as they progress. The first boost should be there for all events. If a TO has linked their Warhammer account, then their event gets a boost. If the TO has applied to be in the approved TO program, then their event will get a second boost. And then finally, World Championship qualifying events. So if your event has a golden ticket associated, then you will receive another boost. So for instance, I suppose, because Jeremy, have you run an event?
No, I haven't actually.
Okay. So let's say, for instance, right now, have you linked your Warhammer account to your BCP?
I have, yes.
Okay. So if you run an event right now, then you would get the one boost, right? Because you are the TO and you've linked your Warhammer account.
Cool.
And so whatever, we'll just speculate and say that the winner of your event gets 156 points, right? So then the other side of that is if I TO it as an approved member of the TO program, my event is worth more. And so the winner of my event gets, 165 points or whatever the case is. And again, I have absolutely no idea what the actual number boost is.
Right.
But that's what they're getting at, is that random events run by people are still worth something because they're important and it builds a community. But the people that are, in this approved program, those events are going to be worth a little bit more.
Okay. I mean, I think that's good because it promotes I guess it would encourage more standardized events, right?
Exactly. And then if you say, we can go to, we go to a GT and it's 128 people. Yeah. So we hit that bracket and whatever, you win, you get your points. But you go to Storm of Silence and they have a golden ticket. So that is worth more than the other GT.
Okay.
So
it seems like we just need to start running events up here, buddy. Not that there's a shortage of them. There's so many here.
There's not. There is not a shortage. I have already talked to Dale over at Real Deal, and he in Coeur d'Alene, and he is a part of the program as well.
Okay.
So we're safe there. Don't have to worry about anything there.
Cool.
Which is good because those RTTs average like 18 people. Yeah,
10 to 16 people ish. Pretty good.
I think it's really, like 15 to 19 is my experience.
Okay.
So, and I mean, I would assume that, or not assume, obviously, because it's Bob. So Haven is going to be in that. Their RTTs are going to be fine.
Yeah, they're legit.
Somebody should probably reach out to Parlor and make sure that they know about this?
Yeah.
If they care.
They just went back to monthly RTTs after some community feedback, which is good.
Which is good.
They switched it up. They were doing like a doubles, and then like doubles is in March, and they were doing them like quarterly. So they were changing the theme and doing things quarterly, which most of us were not super fond of because they were trying to interchange it with like these little leagues that they would run. Now, I loved the league system as like just a way to get more games, but monthly RTTs are like one of my favorite things to do, period, end of story.
Right.
And then they halted those, and we were all a little sad about it. So I'm glad they brought it back. Hopefully it stays. But yeah, I'll talk to them next time I go and to make sure that they're part of the program. And then maybe I'll ask if they want to have me TO from time to time, seeing as...
Yeah. And, you know, for anybody interested out there, I guess there's no harm, right? It's an application, so give it a shot. Like, fill out the application and go for it, because on top of any event that you are the TO for being worth more points, you also get like assume if you get approved and you are officially part of the program, you get as like the aid from GW to help you run events more effectively is you get the code for the app for every codex that has already come out, and you will get the code for every codex that will continue to come out.
That's right. That's what I was talking about last time.
Exactly. So that's what this is. This is the official way. So fantastic. If you're in this program, you don't have to buy a codex again.
I need to ask Bob if he'd let me TO. So, maybe he will.
And they do talk about in the very, very end of it, they do talk about essentially that like this isn't set in stone. Right. They're going to the results and the outcomes and the feedback specifically with like the concept of their new region system. And they look forward to continuing to make changes and improvements every year for organizers and players and blah, 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 blah. So like, if you're upset that it's just the United States now and you're, you know, in a section of the US that's a little bit less competitive than other sections, and so you feel like maybe you're at a disadvantage, well, give them that feedback. And that kind of thing is going to be assessed. And maybe just saying the United States isn't the answer, and they change it.
Yeah. I mean, United States is the largest player base. So I guess we'll have to see when it comes down to it. And then if anything, let's just hope it encourages more people to do more events. Because there's a ton of game stores out there that just don't do events. Large in part because they have such a hard focus on Magic. And it's just been so hard to maintain like the terrain requirements needed for those events. And just the fact that terrain is so easy to get now, like it's so cheap to get like there's Rexer's lasers, there's my buddy Jaden, he just started getting ready to push his stuff. And all of his stuff stores flat and just fits together.
Right. And I know like all of those companies are willing to work with you. I know specifically I've done work with Rexers, and they have deals for organizers, and they say, you know, if you get this many things, then we'll discount it and you get whatever. Right. Yeah. And it's huge discounts because you're buying so much. And obviously that makes sense. So like, it's so much easier to acquire this kind of thing now than it was even 3-4 years ago.
Definitely. Okay. You know what? Even with my negative Nancy-ness earlier in this episode, I feel as though, look, I have hope. I genuinely have hope that this continues to get better, because since I joined the hobby, it's only gotten better. Right. Which is great.
And the number of events that you get scored for is not changing.
What is the rules there in terms of number of events that you get scored for?
So it's in your global, just overall player ranking, they take your top 6 events. Oh, okay. So it doesn't, you can play 37 events. It doesn't matter. They're just only going to count your top your highest 6. And if you want to go and look at your faction ranking, then it's the top 4 that you have with that faction.
Sick. Okay.
And that's it. So that's not changing. That's what it was last year and what we're used to.
Awesome. This makes me really want to do more opens, if I'm being totally honest. I just want to see them all.
Yeah.
So do you have people down in Texas for the, like, let's say the Dallas Open?
Yeah, I have my whole team. There's 10 of us, so there's 9 people there.
All right.
And
well,
to my knowledge, at the moment, at a minimum, 7 of them are going to the Dallas Open.
Okay. Well, maybe I'll go to 2 opens this year if I can, if I could bum a couch or a spare bedroom at one of
that's my plan, right? So I've got a wife and a kid, so I'm not going to every event in the world, but I am in a situation now, not that I can travel a little bit more than I could previously. So at the moment, I'm looking at, for big events that require significant travel, I'm looking at Dallas Open, Tacoma, and LVO.
Yes, those are definitely on my list. I'm pretty sure I want to do Dallas.
And then for just the GTs and RTTs, all of those are in driving distance, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah, there's a ton of GTs in this area. Some of them, and the hard part with those in this area is they get filled up like quick. Ellensburg gets maxed out super fast. Although Squig City, I think, might have still a seat or 2, which is crazy. And that one's about just a little south of Tri-Cities. So, yeah, I wanted to go. I was thinking about going, but I don't know. It's right in a time where I'm probably going to be moving, and I should.
Right.
I have enough events. I have that Vegas event on the 6th of April, so woof. It's going to be a lot. Okay. All of these ITC changes are interesting, and I'm excited for the new season. It's going to be a good time. Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about the meta today, where it's going. The meta is only just getting defined, and it's going to be very short, which is very interesting. So we're going to be in a window of tumultuous change for how the game is going to be, because we just got Pyraless. We got 2 of the best codexes yet to drop, which is really fascinating. And then in 2 or 3 weeks, maybe 3 or 4 weeks, we're going to get a data slate. So
we also have a 3rd codex coming out in 2 weeks.
Oh yes, the Emperor's Children, right?
Yep. Time of recording, Emperor's Children got leaked almost fully today.
Yeah. I was taking a look at some of their stuff. People are freaking out. I'm like, they look fine. Whatever.
They look fine. They look super fun.
Yep.
They definitely look strong. I haven't dug, right? So maybe I put my foot in my mouth. But I don't see anything just right out of the gate that's concerning or broken.
They have really cool stuff that have very interesting and unique rules, and I'm sure it's going to feel broken when you get hit by those dudes that do 3 damage. But beyond that, sure, they're going to have a really tough land raider, but they're still just a melee pressure army. When it comes down to it. And are they not always easy to deal with? No. But people just freak out so much, and I used to be one of those people, so I understand, but it's hard to really grasp. But all that being said, let's talk about going into the unknown. What are the things, if you had to say your top thing that you do in your brain to try to keep the ship straight, or how do you react to when new things are happening to keep yourself grounded?
Yeah, I try pretty hard to keep up with things as they happen. Obviously, that's not always going to be the case, especially in a release climate like we're looking at right now. I just can't. feasibly. Like, I'm not reading every single thing every single day,
No.
but I do try my best to keep up with everything, to have at least a general understanding of what's changed and what's coming.
Yep.
But the biggest thing really is just to know your shit.
Yeah.
Right? Like the easiest thing you can do, the best thing you can do is just be completely familiar. Know it completely. Just the rules of the game.
Yeah.
There are so many people, like, to me it's baffling because this is the game that you're playing. But I encounter so many people at events that are just unaware of core rule interactions.
Oh, like when people don't know what pile-in and consolidation is? And
Sure.
like,
that's a huge one.
It's the most important movement of the game. What are you doing?
Pile-in and consolidate is huge, especially when you get into that, like when you get into the weeds of it and you've got, I can touch this model, but also I can get closer to this objective. You're like, okay, well, you have to do one first.
Yep, you got to touch the model.
There's so many people that don't know that.
Yep.
Or just they don't fully grasp what that looks like.
True. Also that.
And that's the first thing that you can do. Just know the game.
Yeah, know the game.
And obviously, you're going to get surprised by stuff, and you're not going to know everybody's stuff. No, there's 26 or more armies in this game.
Yep.
Nobody knows what all of them do all the time.
Yep. We have a record number of detachment availability at this stage for any edition ever made.
It's insane. So other than the game itself, the next thing is just learn your shit. What does your army do? And you don't even have to know everything, not like specifically what does your army do, specifically what does your list do?
Right. Yeah.
What are the units designed to do? And then how is your list designed to operate? And then just the rules of the units that you're taking. And that's how you avoid those weird situations where you go into something and you go, oh man, this unit sucks. Or I don't know, Chaos Space Marine Havocs. You're like, oh my God, Havocs suck. I'm like, well, you took the chain cannon and you shot it at a vehicle.
maybe bring the las cannons. Maybe try that.
Well, yeah, maybe. And if you're going to bring the chain cannon, then maybe shoot it at infantry, the thing it was designed for, right? And it's just knowing, inside and out, what each of your units is intended to do. And I think that's incredibly important. And I'm looking at it now, I have to remind myself that in Guard.
Yeah.
And I keep going back to that, but that's what I have to look at, because you've got all of these units that can take multiple special weapons, and it's so easy to just go, ha ha, I'm going to have one of everything, and this unit can do everything. No, it can't. Mm-hmm. That unit in reality isn't going to do anything. And so what you need to do is actually sit down and look, and you go, okay, well, what do I want this unit to do? I want this unit to kill vehicles? Great. Then I'm going to take melta-guns and plasma guns or las cannons or whatever, and don't waste your time on the other stuff.
Yeah. I think one of the best things you can do in those circumstances when you have those multi-weapon units is to quite literally roll your shit out. Just try it. Just pull some dice out and then grab something from a different army or whatever, put it across, put it down next to that unit that you're rolling out and just see how it goes. But a shooting between the two, a fighting between the two, just get familiar with it, because it's the only way to get familiar with it without another human being involved, right?
Exactly.
So that's one thing you can do.
That's the big one, and I've heard it multiple times from Drukhari players that their opinion of Lilith varies drastically from mine, and they're like, "Oh, she's not that good. She never really does anything." Well, quit fighting monsters.
Yeah.
She's not going to kill a dreadnought. She's not going to kill crisis suits. That's not what she's made for. You know what she will kill is Terminators. Deathwing Knights, Terminators, regular Space Marines, literally anything infantry.
Yeah.
Like that, she's not doing anything for you because you're putting her in the wrong place. So just knowing what your unit is designed to do and putting it in that situation is immediately going to see the difference, right? You're not going to get mad that, like, I don't know, my 10 catechins with 2 flamers didn't kill a single Wraith Guard. Cool. They're not supposed to.
Right.
You know, but they did kill whatever 7 Guardians. And you're like, all right, cool.
Yeah. Because that's what they're supposed to do.
So, and it's just understanding that.
Yeah. And that kind of leads into what I want to talk about. Is I think that when you are considering building your list and you see a unit or you hear a change, why not try trusting your gut? It is so easy to think like, oh, this unit, like I definitely, this unit's going to be good. I'm going to try this unit in this circumstance. It sounds really good. And so here's the circumstance. So I was like, yes, Desolation Marines are going to be good because Eldari is back. I have Drukhari in my local meta. There are always going to be infantry, and Desolation Marines, even if they cost 200 points, are good. And people were like, some people agreed, and we had like Innis playing them in Anvil Siege Force, and then I bring that up to people, and they're just like, or bring up Desolation Marines, and like, no, you have to play them in this detachment. And the truth is you look at Pyra, and I'm seeing Desolation Marines in Vanguard, which is where I think they are one of the best units in the game there. In those lists, just tearing things up. And I think it's just one of those things to like put it on the table and try it. It may not seem popular, but until you've actually repped it out, you don't know. And sometimes you might be the person who's like, yeah, I was playing that unit forever, and then somebody on the pro circuit figured it out. It's like, cool, you know?
And that, honestly, it feels really fucking cool when that happens.
It does. It really does. Seeing Desolation Marines explode, and I was like, elves are on the way. Yeah, Desolation Marines. And I'm sure like 100,000 other people had that same thought, but it felt good to me.
There's a small satisfaction to it.
Yeah, absolutely. And then my last point I want to bring up as far as just those, you know, staying on your toes and being ready is being just open-minded. It's okay to lose. Like it's totally fine to lose. You know, if you're not okay with losing, you're gonna have a really hard time with this game. Trust me. Like, if you can't just take a loss, because like if you get really upset about your losses, it's one thing to sit back and think about how could I have improved. It is another to get just like genuinely mad. And like, look, we all go through that phase, especially early in our Warhammer gaming. And some people live that forever. Yeah. And if you are one of those people who do live it forever, I would consider going to therapy and talking about it, honestly, because you have something wrong on the inside that needs to be addressed. It has nothing to do with 40K. It is entirely something else. So, yeah, be okay with losses. Celebrate the wins, but be okay when it comes to losses. You'll have a much better time. Yeah. Anything you want to bring up as far as staying comfy?
Man. No, I mean, I like, that is it. And I mean, you put it here, you know, like, and I kind of already talked about it, is that you should be, theoretically, building your lists to play a certain way and taking units with a purpose to do specific things. So when you start playing the game, don't change that halfway through, right? And it's so easy to do when you just get stuck of like, my plan is to kill this thing this turn, and you start shooting it and you don't kill it with the units that are designed to kill it. That happens. It's a dice game. Yes. But it's so easy for that to happen, and then you go, oh, well, I have to kill it because that was my plan. And I'm going to now start shooting all of this random shit that isn't designed for it, or maybe it is designed for it, but it had a more like impactful target than the one that you just wanted to kill because you thought you needed to. If you have a plan for your turn, very, very rarely is that, or should that change during the turn.
Yeah.
You score your primary, you look at your secondaries. Once you look at your secondaries and you make a plan of how to score those, you really shouldn't be making changes in the middle of the game. In the middle of the turn.
Yeah,
and it's so easy to do it.
Yeah, and there's points of failure along the way that, like, sure, maybe this didn't work out perfectly. You didn't get a 10, maybe you got a 7 on your turn instead. That's okay. You got as many as you could because you didn't deviate from the rest of the plan.
Right. And that's going to happen. And sometimes it does. Sometimes your game plan changes at the end and you go, I have this, my list is like entirely designed to just kill shit, but I've only got like 5 units left. I'm not going to kill anything. Okay. Yeah. You probably pivot strategies at that point.
Yeah.
And you start looking at what is just the most points that I can possibly score in various situations. But you're not going to make that pivot in the middle of your turn. That's something that you already knew happened.
Yeah. You do your thinking during your opponent's turn. When you have a moment to breathe, you execute on your turn. And as long as you maintain that thought process, it helps you with a faster game, number one. I think that's the most important thing to remember. You actually get through your turn, no analysis paralysis. And you just get better at planning out everything that you're trying to do. Like,
yeah.
You
and
zoom
obviously
out.
This is, it's all to the best of your ability. There are extenuating circumstances and things are going to change and things are going to make it more difficult. But for the most part, this is how it's going to go.
Yeah.
So.
Absolutely.
Just,
and
you made a plan and stick to it and be comfortable.
Have a plan, stick to it. Just because the meta is jumbling around, just because there's changes in the competitive environment, doesn't mean that you should deviate from what you're trying to accomplish, which is have fun playing Warhammer and maybe win a game or two along the way, right?
That's it.
Hell yeah. I think with that, we should end it here. What do you think?
I think I'm comfortable with that.
Cool. So we'll see you guys back in a week. Thank you so much for being here. I know I appreciate you. Joey, do you appreciate the people that are here listening?
I do. I appreciate you guys. And yeah, I hope that we can continue to build our own little community here. But I do appreciate those of you that are on this ride with us here from the beginning.
Absolutely. If anyone has any questions that they want to ask, anything that you'd like to hear us answer during one of these episodes, let us know. Otherwise, hang around, listen, and we'll see you next time at the Yawp.
At the Yawp.